Hey family, in this video, I am going to cover the release or revocation of release of claim to exemption for a child by the custodial parent. Oftentimes, when we have two taxpayers who share a child, whether they were married before or not, comes the question, who gets to claim the child? Per the IRS, there are special rules that must be looked at, such as support, and then we look at the custodial parent versus the non-custodial parent. This form gives the non-custodial parent the permission to file their tax return claiming the child without regard to those special rules. Okay. But this form, which would be the release of claim to exemption for a child, has to be signed by the custodial parent. Now, it's important to note that for tax years 2018 through 2025, that exemptions have been suspended under the Tax Cuts and Job Act, which was signed under the Trump administration in 2017. However, even though there are no exemptions to claim, it is important to understand who would be able to claim the exemption for the child because that determines who can claim them on their tax return. Okay. Now, if you're new here, I promise I'm going to get right to this form, but let me introduce myself. My name is Timlin Bowens. I'm America's favorite EA, and I'm also the owner of Bowens Tax Solutions in Louisville, Kentucky. It's a virtual based firm, and we specialize in helping taxpayers with IRS issues of $100,000 or more. Hopefully, this doesn't turn into that type of issue for you. So first, as we look at the purpose, as I said before, it's a release to the exemption for your child so that the non-custodial parent can claim them on their tax return. We also use this same form to revoke the release here in part 3. Okay? Now, with Form 8332, the custodial parent is generally the parent with whom the child lived for more nights in the year. Okay, so let's say we have 365 days in the year, right? Then that means the parent who had the child under their roof for 183 nights is going to be considered the custodial parent based on the IRS definition. Now, nights away at summer camp, grandparents' house, and away at school still count for the custodial parent. But if we've had an amicable separation, then oftentimes the custodial parent will release their right to claim the child to the non-custodial parent. So first, we want to have the name of the non-custodial parent here. And in this situation, we have Ryan O'Keefe. Okay. Next, we have the non-custodial parent social security number. Okay. So understandably, the non-custodial parent may fill this part out. The part that we really need for the custodial parent to fill out is part 1. Okay? And sometimes part 2. Some couples have this form filled out every year, whereas others may go ahead and have the release of claim for future years so they don't have to revisit this every single year. If you're in a situation, whether it is family court or divorce court, you probably want to go ahead and have your attorney present this so that the judge can have your child's other parent sign it, releasing their claim to exemption. The reason being, yes, it may be spelled out in a divorce decree. It may be spelled out in something that the judge has already ruled, but the IRS goes based off of this form, not the divorce decree. Okay? So here in part 1, we have the custodial parent agreeing not to claim an exemption for Ryan O'Keefe Jr. for this tax year tax year 2024. Then the custodial parent will sign this. They'll put their social security number and they will date it. Okay. Now, if we have a situation, like I said, we know that every other year the non-custodial parent, Ryan O'Keefe Sr., is going to be claiming the child, then we would go ahead and say for tax years 2026, 2028, and 2030. Okay. Again, we have the custodial parent social security number, and we're going to have the signature of the custodial parent releasing the claim to exemption, and they're going to date it. Now, let's say that the non-custodial parent does something where they lose this right and ability, right? And the custodial parent wants to take this back. What they would do with the same form, they're going to fill out part three, and instead of agreeing to release the claim to exemption, they're going to revoke the release of claim to an exemption. And we'd have Ryan O'Keefe Jr.'s information here, the tax years where they're releasing that claim, and then again, we would have the custodial parent social security number and the signature of that custodial parent and the date. Now, what do we actually do with this form? You may be asking. So, for the non-custodial parent, they want to make sure that they attach this Form 8332, or a similar statement that spells out the same information to the tax return for each year that they claim the child. So, for example, if you are the non-custodial parent and you are claiming your child this year and you have this release of claim to exemption, you would want to make sure that this is attached to your 1040. Okay? You can claim the exemption only if the other dependency test and the instructions for your tax return are met. All right. So when we're looking at what a dependent child is, this can be a qualifying child or a relative. Okay. Generally, a child of divorced or separated parents will be a qualifying child of the custodial parent only. So again, with this release, we're looking at the support that you provided, how many nights, and support can be the roof over their head, right? If we're looking at child support. But bottom line, you just want to make sure that this is included with your tax return. Because let's say we're dealing with a petty ex-partner, right? That says, hey, you weren't actually supposed to claim them. You would present this form and send it to the IRS so they already have it on file that you have right to claim the child for this tax year. Okay? I hope this video is helpful. I will put a link to the PDF of this form down in the description. If you have any questions at all, let me know down in the comments. All right? I'll see you guys in the next video.